It was awesome. It was such a big confidence boost to get there and finally be in person and know that I'm not just going in to try and qualify. I'm going in as a threat on the roster. Just using that to my advantage and using that and that confidence going in was really helpful. My goal was to be in the top 5 in every event. And I knew if I could do that I would qualify. So I had a few where I was, just 8th, and then every other one was 5th or better. So it was a really big confidence boost. It was, I know I'm a different athlete, and I know that there is getting older and still seeing progress. Like, I know there's still so much more potential to kind of tap into. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that can mean this year and, years going forward.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad back in the house. Special guest, Paige Semenza, 2022 CrossFit Games athlete. Welcome back, Paige.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
So we're going to go pretty deep in this episode. I've got an idea of where I want to take it, and I think you're the right guest to go there, but we'll start with a little bit of fun. Or maybe fun. Are you 1 or 2? Get it together, Hunter. Are you 1 or 2 days into games prep right now?
I'm like 1.5.
Recording in progress.
Thanks, Ted.
That was Hunter. Good. Keep going, Ted. We good? Yeah. All right. Paige, answer the question. No.
Sorry. I am about 1.5 days in. So I just did a session this morning. So I'm on day 2.
And you had a little bit of ramp up at the end of Comp Block 2 after a couple weeks of rest?
Yeah. So I actually kind of hit it hard last week. Gabe and I decided if I can kind of really ramp it up last week, then I can kind of give myself a week in the middle of the block somewhere that can kind of tone down a little bit to give myself, I kind of do better with like 3 or 4 weeks of hard training and then a little bit of a dip and then a little bit of a ramp back up. So last week I did hit it pretty hard, and I'm not gonna lie, I was sore as hell, and I was having a hard time recovering, but I feel good now. So
what have you hit so far? Have you had any special pieces? Anything that sticks out?
So Gabe and he is kind of changing a little bit of the training, like, maybe adding in something a little bit different. So yesterday I did the Metcon reset. I did ski a sled push with the rope climbs. So
okay.
That's just kind of like the rope climbs is still getting some solid skill work in under fatigue, and kind of looking back at Syndicate, being able to push a heavy sled for a moderately heavy sled for a specific distance, and then being able to get right into some other work, which is kind of a higher skill with the rope climb. So just being able to push that and focus on efficiency on the rope after, hitting, spiking the heart rate and hitting a sled, knowing I can still go and have confidence to do a skill under fatigue like that. So that was a good one yesterday.
Yeah. And I think one part of it too is just the information gathering. You kind of hit it when you said that transition into the rope and then being able to use the skill. There isn't really as much about, once you get to your level, when you're thinking about the sled, it isn't as much about, am I a sled person? It's how hard can I push the sled? What do transitions look like after the sled? Like, do I really know how to use my athlete IQ when it comes to this? Because everything else, you do so often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, the same on the ski. So like, I'm not a super strong ski person. So being able to reach a little bit more on that and seeing how that affects the other 2 movements as well. Yeah, so, for sure. I'll forever be a person working on the machines.
Now there's a rumor that the clean and jerk burpee pistol is quite special.
I heard that was kind of easy.
I did that this morning. I also
that was one of my troll workouts. Sorry, go ahead, Paige.
Yeah, I also had it changed to a 30-foot handstand walk instead of the pistols. So
Gabe's
that made
soft.
Yeah, soft. That sucked.
I would much rather do pistols.
No. Same. My shoulders were smoked. So, but again, that's a good piece for me to. ended up doing the 30-foot in one go. So like I would jog back to my barbell to get into the burpees.
Yep.
But I wanted to just be able to continue pushing the distance repeatedly at 30 feet and having to go unbroken. So I kind of forced that and really trying to limit my transition from the last clean and jerk into the handstand walk, because if I let myself, I'll take an extra 5 to 7 seconds just to catch my breath and go. Whereas like I can breathe upside down and still be okay.
Is that something that you guys are specifically targeting, like gymnastics under fatigue? Like, is it a transition thing? Is it a gymnastics thing? Is it just something that you guys noticed? What's the deal?
Yeah, it's kind of just getting the overall confidence of knowing I can be under a heavy fatigue and still hit a smooth set of something, or, you know, not break down on a gymnastics movement because I think it's a weakness for me. So like just building confidence there and knowing that, okay, maybe I'm not super great at it, but I think that, and my performance shows otherwise. So being able to just kind of keep pushing the threshold a little bit is kind of the idea there.
Yeah, you've got a bit of a tough crowd here. One of them doesn't have ankles and the other one is the Tin Man. So you're probably going to get some comments about pistols regardless from those two.
I heard they're bad for you.
Yeah.
So you competed now 3+ weeks ago. Is that about right?
Yeah.
I know that you have bigger goals than just qualifying for the CrossFit Games. You've been to the regionals and semifinals level quite a few times, but what was it like for you this year to go there and not only qualify for the CrossFit Games, but sort of there was a bit of an exclamation point on how you performed and the way that you stayed in a position where you could really go out and attack. What was that like for you?
It was awesome. It was such a big confidence boost to get there and finally be in person and know that I'm not just going in to try and qualify. I'm going in as a threat on the roster. So just using that to my advantage and using that and that confidence going in was really helpful. I went in, my goal was to be in the top 5 in every event. And I knew if I could do that I would qualify. So I had a few where I was, just 8th, and then every other one was 5th or better. So, it was a really big confidence boost. It was, I know I'm a different athlete, and I know that there is getting older and still seeing progress. Like I know there's still so much more potential to kind of tap into. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that can mean this year and, years going forward.
Have you had previous years where you potentially did not perform to what you thought your fitness level was?
2019 getting cut, that sucked. I was like one spot away from getting into the next event before getting cut, like kind of before you got into the top 20. So I felt really fit in 2019 and I didn't get to express it the way that I was hoping to.
The reason I asked that question is because it is one thing to show up prepared in terms of your energy systems, your strength, your skill, all of the attributes that we talk about on a very regular basis. But it's another to then go and execute at the level of what you're capable of. And some athletes have a hard time with putting those two things together. Is there anything about your experience that you can point to, a mindset thing, really anything at all where you feel like you were able to go in and tap into that?
So obviously preparation leading up to it, I made sure to hit weaknesses, months ago, leading up to that very day, leading up to that very week, and just getting to see how they play out. I think the Maffetone sessions have been a huge benefit for me. You talked to Gabe about event 5 with the light thrusters, the rowing, the chest to bar pull-ups. Like I had to go really, really dark in that workout, but I was able to hang on the thrusters where, I really wanted to put it down, but my body was able to perform and do it. So it's just, that was a mental thing.
Can you tell us what that workout was specifically?
So the workout was a 1K row, 50 empty bar thrusters, 60 chest to bar pull-ups, 50 empty bar thrusters, 1K row.
What would your time have been 3 years ago
Oh.
on that workout.
Are you talking to
would've
me?
capped.
All right, let me think about it.
You got a calendar?
That was such a moment watching you do that workout, knowing what you've been working on, knowing, sort of, especially honestly with all three movements, like
Yeah.
when you break it down to like you're good at thrusters, but you take it all the way back to the empty bar, you go to that place in terms of rep range after the row with the pulling gymnastics. I just, that was such a special moment, here it is. And not a lot of other people, without knowing you as well as we do, would get to see that in that same way. But watching you especially put yourself through it, but then it's like, hey, there's another 1K row. You could lose it there, and you pushed really hard. And it was just so cool to see.
Yeah. Thank you. That workout, I had Gabe and Ben and all of my friends and family down at the finish lines. They're in front of me, and Gabe is so passionate and just gets so intense and so
we've got photo evidence.
Yeah.
Truth.
So into what we are doing that I could just feel his energy, and I'm like, okay, he's giving his all to me. So I'm going to put that into what I'm doing right now. And it helps. For me, that's the kind of stuff that, that little bit of teamwork makes a big deal for me. And I went super dark in that workout, and, I fell off a pretty good pace on the row. But you can see if you watch it, you could see that I was literally just emptying every last bit that I had in my tank.
Oh yeah.
And that's all you can do. Right. So, I was super proud of that event. And I think that one was the biggest takeaway of the weekend for me. But kind of getting back to your question, of what, kind of what was different this time around. You have the preparation leading up to it, semis prep, but going into that week, making sure that Ben knew his role and my parents knew their role and Gabe knew his role, and just having everybody prepared for, okay, Ben is going to make sure that, food is ready for dinner. I don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. Having that help is huge.
Yeah.
And it makes you focus on what you need to focus on. And that's it. And with Gabe being in the warm-up area, Gabe, just kind of tell me what to do and I will do it. And I, kind of pick a movement here or there that I know will make me feel good. But okay, Paige, here's 3 rounds. Let's do 3 dumbbell thrusters, 6 burpees over the dumbbells, and gave me good primers that, again, I didn't have to think about those things. I just had to go and do them and execute. And that was huge.
Do you think, kind of going back to something you said earlier, which was that you were there to be, you were a threat. It wasn't, I'm just here to qualify for the CrossFit Games. It's I'm here to, win the semifinal, stand on the podium, whatever it is. What is that something that was a different approach from years past? Is that when did you kind of adopt that offensive mentality?
Yeah. I think this year, just going into seeing good results in quarterfinals and semifinals. Last year being online, again, that was just I was a head case with it. It was hard for me to gauge what other people are doing. And when you're in person, you are right next to other people. And I like that game time kind of pressure. But I think the belief in knowing that, okay, my 9th place in quarterfinals wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a fluke last year. It was this is who I am. This is the type of competitor I am. Let's go and try and get on the podium and get as high as we can and get as many points as we can. And that's definitely changed this year. That has been I've seen that slowly develop over the course of the entire year. And being at camp with you guys and you guys getting to see the progress of the programming that's getting put into play and all that, that's kind of where that came from.
I say the big thing that I recognize from the early part of this conversation is you saying that you effectively have made sure that when you're competing or training, it's just about that effort and nothing else is kind of hanging around you or kind of distracting you from that I think a lot of athletes struggle to advocate for themselves and make sure they have people kind of in their corner doing different things in different roles. Just curious what those conversations were like around like friends and family leading up to the event, because I think a lot of athletes struggle to know how to verbalize that type of like, hey, I need my space, or I need this support from you, but not that kind of support. So I don't know if you could just take us through kind of those conversations leading up, both from like the end of 2019 where you felt you were really, really fit, but just felt short of your goal, to, hey, now we're 2 years later and making tremendous strides, even though we were already kind of near the top of the sport.
Yeah. I mean, with my parents, it comes pretty easy. Like my dad is just super laid back and, kind of does his own thing. So my parents aren't so much of, kind of where the conversation lies. Ben is, he can, he does all the right things when he needs to. Like he knows how to just be the support, and he asks what I need. And that makes the conversation very much flexible and open. And then just having that balance with him and with Gabe. And I even said to Gabe at one point, maybe they shouldn't know this, but we ended 2 passes where Ben could be down in the warm-up area with me all weekend, and so could Gabe. So I had both of them down there, but at the beginning I only had Gabe, and I was like, Gabe, would it be okay, to kind of swap the pass in and out with Ben, so I could at least have 5 to 10 minutes with him down here, because he's super helpful for me. And Gabe was all about it. Like, the Gabe is very much open-minded as far as like what I need, he's willing to do, or he's willing to not do. And then as far as social life and things like that, I have had to make some sacrifices and be a little bit more kind of in my own shell, which kind of sucks, but also I'm seeing benefit from it. And there will be times in the season where you get to get out more and you get to be a little bit more social, but this is work and this is what I want. So I'm going to do what it takes to get what I want.
If you don't mind me asking, could you kind of elaborate a bit more on like what about having your partner back there versus your coach back there? Because, us coaches here sitting around are like, when we're back there with our athlete, making sure they're very focused on the task at hand. And like, we're talking about like maybe strategy of the workout, or maybe, calm your nerves and trying to be back there to be that person. What was Ben back there for you? Like, is he there to give you like the last little bit of like encouragement ahead of the event? Is it to steady your mind, or like what about your partner being there back there was helpful for you pre-event?
So Gabe was very much, let's talk strategy. Let's warm up properly. Ben is, he is the calm before the storm for me. So he is that person that can, be very, very cool, calm, and collected. And like, that's my hug and my kiss right before I go out there. Like, it's just a mental thing for me. And if I didn't have him back there, that would have been okay as well. Like, we had that conversation leading up to the event that, what if I only have one pass and it's going to go to Gabe, and we both were okay with that. So just having open communication about it. But again, like you said, I love having him back there, and he sees all of the behind the scene things here at home. So it just kind of puts me in my natural element when he's there.
I think that's good too, because some athletes feel like they need to be like yelling and screaming before they go out in the event. And some athletes are very quiet and kind of in their own head ahead of time. So I think it's just a really important thing to note that, not everybody prepares the exact same way, and you have to figure out what is the best possible like combination of, getting yourself to the event to 3, 2, 1, go out on the floor. Like, what series of actions need to take place for you to perform your best. So, I think that, that formula worked pretty well for you that weekend.
Yeah, I definitely do better when I'm focused on what I have to do, but I can also joke around, have some fun in the back. Even with Gabe, we would joke around a little bit, and it would just keep me calm and, keep me loose, because if I'm super tensed up and I'm just thinking about what I have to do, that's when I can really get in my own head.
I think that's more of a nod to like the kind of athlete maturity that you've obviously developed over not only your CrossFit career, but longer in knowing that like, hey, going all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, when it's like, hey, I've got X number of people as part of my team. And I experienced something pretty similar with Kelly at the MAC, where we've got a handful of of people who have kind of basically they have their role. They know what their role is. They understand, how that cog fits into the larger system. But then on the athlete end, it's like you are also mature enough to know, like, there are it's like, yeah, if I get one coach's pass, it's going to the coach, my coach, who's going to be back there and give me the best chance for success. But also, again, maturity. Hey, Gabe, is it okay if, we swap that out for Ben, because that helps me? And it's the same. I've had the same conversation, with other athletes, where it's like, hey, I want you to do this. What do you think about it? And it's like, well, are you asking me to do that because is that a convenience for me, or is that something that's going to help you perform better? And if you know as the athlete that it's something that's going to help you perform better, then, like, obviously
make it happen.
You're going to make it happen. So
Right. And as a coach, from that perspective, you want the best for your athlete. So if they're telling you that, hey, I just need to swap out for 5 minutes, you kind of have to be okay with that, right? Like, you want the best for them. So, but having Gabe and having been with Gabe since 2018, those kind of conversations are actually very comfortable for us.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
So, all right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and hopefully save you a little bit of dough on our favorite products. Holy shit, Sherb.
Yo.
Misfit Summer Camp,
Finally.
August 19th through the 21st, Misfit HQ, Portland, Maine. This place is freaking beautiful during the summer. This is the perfect time to visit. This is our community-based camp that we try to do every year. The pandemic tried to ruin that. Fuck you, pandemic. We are back. Misfit Summer Camp is back. We're going all in on the summer camp vibe. There's going to be teams. You're going to have special colored shirts for what team you're on. Yours is going to be athlete and coach kind of chaperone vibe. Us versus you versus them. Drew v. Sherb. Except I don't have to do anything. I just get to unleash my campers on Sherb. Just
see about that.
Just beat the crap out of him. All jokes aside, Misfit Summer Camp, August 19th through the 21st. You can sign up at misfit.camp. Based on our last camp's signups and tickets, I recommend getting in on that as early as possible. We are also at the very beginning of Comp Block 3 right now. You can head to misfitathletics.com or the SugarWOD Marketplace to try that out for free. If you love to clean and jerk and snatch, but think you should probably get a little bit better at running, we are peaking the clean and jerk and snatch. We are running at least twice a week, mixed into all of this other stuff that allows you to personalize your program instead of just sliding into another one-size-fits-all program. MisfitAthletics.com or the SugarWOD Marketplace.
We're also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co and use the code word MISFIT to save on any order. Now, we just got back from semifinals. Been putting off going to the doctor for a really long time. I've been dealing with some digestive issues because, I don't know exactly what my upbringing was like when it comes to the nutrition, but ever since then, I've fallen in love with strength and conditioning and trying to make sure I put the right things in my body so I can perform the best. Now, one of the problems is typically when you train, they ask you to drink some whey protein after to help build those muscles. And unfortunately for me, I can't digest whey all that well. So what's really nice about Proper Recovery is it includes digestive enzymes that help you break down the whey protein isolates that you can then synthesize it and use that to build new muscles. So again, if you're someone that likes whey protein or you like the idea of being able to take a supplement post-training to get more from your training, but you struggle to digest whey, check out Proper Fuel. Check out the digestive enzymes that help you digest that protein so you can get more from your training. Again, you can head to properfuel.co, use the code word MISFIT to save on any order.
Last but not least, we are brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com, use the code word PAIGE, P-A-I-G-E, or any of your other favorite Misfit Athletics athletes that have qualified for the CrossFit Games. They need your support. So when you head to the site and you're buying joggers and the new Endure Misfit College hoodie and the new shirts and the Burn It Down collection and all the other goodies we have coming up, make sure you use their code sharpentheaxeco.com. All right, back to the show. With the rest of the episode, we are going to be campaigning for athletes to go all in, and sort of uncovering what does it mean to go all in. And I do want to start with the obvious stuff. So I'm going to let the three of you just kind of jump in and talk a little bit about what it means to go all in from a standpoint of potentially training or recovery and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Oh, like jump in right now?
No.
I was waiting 2 or 3
207.
207. All right. I got 3 more minutes.
I think, again, having watched, kind of using Kelly as my litmus test, having watched her over the last year, and part of that is like a kind of like transition from the team to individual, kind of, you know, being towards the back end of her career. It's like, okay, we're gonna put all the eggs in that basket, and until you as a coach or even as like an athlete or just a bystander sees what that means, it's kind of difficult to comprehend. But I think probably the biggest thing is athletes I've found are pretty good at doing the work inside the gym. I think you're hard pressed to find somebody, a legitimate competitive athlete who doesn't, you know, want to do the work in the gym if they have that super like high level goal. And obviously that looks different. That's not to say that like athletes are going to spend 10 hours in the gym every day. It's more like doing the work isn't the issue. The things that I've seen when we're thinking about going all in is mostly the support from the external forces. Her husband Lance has basically been like a mule for the entire year. And he did the same thing for her at semifinals, where similar to Ben and your parents, he understood that his role was in large part like, hey, we're physically driving to the venue, like carrying some bags if needed, helping out when possible, but he didn't have a coach's pass. So, you know, he also wasn't, you know, didn't overstep in any sort of, you know, any manner like that. And he made sure that she had all the food that she needed, like all of these things that sound like if you were given a piece of paper with a job description, you're just like, sick, I'm going to make $7.25 an hour doing this. But it's like one of the most important, like, it was incredible. It's like how much other stuff does the athlete not have to worry about now that we have that individual, you know, or group of people doing those tasks.
It's a great answer, but Hunter did not understand the homework assignment. Sure, but your turn. You try.
I'll try my best.
I'm trying to do the whole answer.
Do the whole answer at once.
That's the most obvious thing you can think of for how an athlete should go all in.
It was the first thing I thought of. We're trying to get the ball rolling here.
Oh, you're digging deep. Honestly, to start, it's making sure that you have the non-negotiables checked off. Like if you're really trying to go all in, you need to make sure things like, I think what you're getting at is personal relationships need to be there. If you don't have a support staff, you literally cannot do this thing alone.
A critical piece.
Very true.
I think that's really important. Yes. I mean, the other things I'm thinking about, one, you need to be training. You need to be training at the level that it's appropriate for your current stage in development. You might be Misfit Anywhere, you might be Hatchet, you might be MFT. All depends on your training age and your background. So making sure that you're doing the fitness appropriate program would be step number one. Step number two is making sure lifestyle factors are really in check. So personal relationships, making sure you are actually sleeping the amount you need to be doing. You need to make sure you are fueling your body. You're not just trying to look really cool in the gym, because I think even 2022, we just went to a bunch of regionals where a bunch of people who look like they should be in a bodybuilding.
We had to run out to Panera and get sandwiches for most of the men.
They look really sad.
A lot of skinny men who need sandwiches.
Too many skinnies. So making sure you're, fueling to be training at this level and realizing that a little extra body fat's not a bad thing. And then after that, it's starting to dig into some of those like 1% things that Paige sort of alluded to in the beginning of this podcast. So right program, lifestyle's right. And then after those things are definitely checked off, it's then diving into the nitty gritty stuff. Like what things could be better that weren't better the year before. Sometimes it's getting a coach and making sure that, you have someone on your side to talk to about pieces. Like, hey, I'm not just doing this to do this piece. What about this piece am I trying to do? Am I trying to hold negative splits? Am I trying to, maybe start a little hot and settle as the workout goes? Am I supposed to try to hang on for unbroken or break things up? But having someone to kind of bounce ideas off of based upon someone who watches you work out a bunch and realizes kind of your strengths and weaknesses, and make sure that when you are training for those, gains, that you're not just doing the workout the easiest way for you. So maybe going the fastest you can or hanging on broken and standing around a bunch. Like you're doing the little things to make sure that you're taking that growth. And then, this conversation could be really, really detailed, like article 1 through 4001.
We'll let Paige jump in now.
But yeah, go ahead, Paige.
I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter, and I'm going to say step 0 is committing to going all in. Like, it has to come from within mentally. And then you need to, step 1, step 2, get your lifestyle to match with your goals.
Ownership.
So I'm gonna start there. Yeah, you got to take ownership, and you got to really believe, like, okay, I'm fucking going all in. Like, this is it, and I'm gonna see what comes of that.
I think.
How'd you get there, Paige? I was just curious. Based on like 2019, with a little bit of disappointment going into the, what you did this season, like, was there a specific moment? Is it just like the sour taste in your mouth? Finishing or 21st, and not getting yourself into that next stage. Like, what was it?
Yeah. 2020 was a big part of it. Having conversations with Gabe where it was like, it didn't, the vibe that I gave off to Gabe, to Ben, was different in 2020. It didn't feel like I was all in. And when I look back and I reflect on it and I look at my training and I look at my choices, they're right. I wasn't all in then. And this year I really committed to going all in, and it started with me.
I think that, that's maybe the single point of failure is the decision to go all in has to be exclusively belong to the athlete willing to do it, regardless of what level you're currently at. Nobody can make that the goal for you. You can't have a coach who's like more committed to it, than the endeavor than you are. Right. I think another part of that kind of step 0 is like, it's maybe even before that, it's what does it actually mean to go all in? What does that actually look like? Because if you're making that decision, the odds that you are already acting that out are probably pretty small. And, it might mean asking a coach, what do I need to do to get me from here to there, or asking somebody and having kind of getting that general roadmap plotted out in your head. Because it's easy to just say, yeah, I'm committing all in. It's like, well, what does that even look like for you? Do you know what it looks like? Because if you don't, you can train, you can work out.
It's hard
really
to know.
hard.
It's so hard to know in this sport too, because your version of all in, there are factors that you would consider a weakness. And if you go all in on that weakness and neglect everything else, you're just going to end up in a similar weird place.
It's a constantly changing landscape. Every year is super different,
and there's the only thing that I think is potentially missing from this is what I think it takes to be good now versus a few years ago, is that I believe so many athletes worked out based on feeling, and didn't really have very much data to back it up. And we find that out when a bunch of athletes come into town and we start having these conversations about, what are you going to hold in this piece? What's your set here? What's your set there? And they look at us like we're crazy. And we sort of work through it over the course of the weekend. There is a student of the game, accepting responsibility part that is so important that I think a lot of people relied on a coach for before, but now so much happens on the fly, and you go out there and oops, at the beginning of a chipper, I'm the last one off the bike by 15 seconds. And then, is my plan still okay? Where can I make up time? There's a lot of stuff that has to happen on the fly. And if the athlete is always relying on their coach 100% of the time to say, you're doing this here, this here, this here, this here, I don't think that's going to work at the highest levels anymore in this sport.
Yeah, I think we're still in very much kind of that exponential growth phase of the sport as a whole. I think, people from year to year, the difference in kind of growth is still it's still massive. And whether it's like a combination of both numbers going up, age of athlete going down, like watching how many semifinals had teenagers who absolutely annihilated folks. So I think we're still very much learning, like it's what it means to go all in and perform, like you said, at the highest level is going to keep changing and is going to be different every year for the next decade or two, whatever, until the sport kind of settles into its place as exactly what it takes to get there.
They used to have the rule where if you had ever won the CrossFit Games, that you were pre-qualified for the games indefinitely. And there was the year that Kalipa decided to do regionals anyways. And he did it in a hoodie in the rain, and he just waxed everybody that was there. And fast forward now, it's possible for someone like Koski to go somewhere where everyone thought he was going to be 1 or 2 and not qualify. So this idea of, I'm peaking I only peak for the games. We could be down to 3, 4, 5 athletes in the world that are allowed to say that anymore, versus someone can roll off their couch and wear a hoodie in the rain and beat everybody that's there. Yeah. And Paige, you're in the women's field. The women's field is progressing at a rate that I can't even, it's unreal. Yeah. Like the weights that are being thrown around, the paces that are being held in, our more traditional monostructural movements, like sets of gymnastics where, before someone potentially couldn't even do the movement. Now they're doing 45 of them in a workout. It's pretty remarkable what that sort of progression looks like. So, to get sort of back to the original conversation, Paige, you found the entire point of the episode in the very first thing that you said. So congrats on that.
She beat us.
Yes.
This all came to me from, I would say, semifinals last year dated to today. We watched what happened to you last year, Paige. You were, we can narrow it down to a single rep of a barbell movement.
Yeah.
As to why you did not go to the CrossFit Games last year. And when you go all in, there's a level of vulnerability where you are just like open to the world. Like you can create this open wound. I've said it. I am going to do X. I have, gone all in. I've sacrificed. I've asked so much of the people around me. And I think a lot of people are really scared of that. Really scared of the idea of, if I say I'm going to do something and then I fail, what is on the other side of this? And we see so many athletes hold back for this exact reason. So we have week 1, we use Paige as an example, and your relationship with your coach and your peers after the scary thing happened. You did not reach your goal. You went it all in all year. You did not reach your goal. You were on the other side of that fear, and it motivated you, and it strengthened your relationship with your coach. And you went into this year knowing that maybe something was left off the table last year, and that you weren't going to allow that to happen. I went into Lowlands with Luca, trying to stand on top of the podium. He ended up in 6th place. I have never been more motivated as a coach after watching that, after watching him, honestly perform at a level that would be on a podium at just about every place. There's a few things that we need to improve on. But he made it to the other side of that. He's the type who's not shy at all, as we know, in terms of saying he's all in. This is my life. This is what I do. Every decision I make puts me here. And he is fired up and ready to go for last chance. And he is, ready for the following season and all of that. So he's made it to the other side of that fear. Kelly went all in, skipped going masters her first year, and came up short of what she wanted to happen. And Hunter strolled into the gym the next day wearing his Kelly Clark t-shirt. You could tell there was a sense of pride in him coming back in wearing that shirt. So she made it to the other side of that scary thing that people are absolutely unwilling to do. And she has a stronger relationship today with Hunter, her coach, with her support system, than she did before she went out and tried to make the leap and do that thing. I know Caroline had a sort of a sour taste in her mouth after the end of her season last year, with her experience at the games, and then potentially her experience at Wadapalooza. She's on the other side of that. We go absolutely all in, try to go there and win, and she ends up on the podium. I'll try to get through this. The fresh wound conversation that we'll have right now is with Austin. We've got 4 a.m. alarm clock, come in and do either Maffetone or a lift and a Metcon by himself. He goes and cuts trees down for 8 hours, comes back to the gym after that and trains alone again. Somehow within all of this is trying to eat like 6,000 calories, something absolutely obnoxious
Got
a day.
Backpack on all day.
Try to, yeah.
It's a camelback full of feed.
Tries to get enough sleep and recovery to make this possible again. His weekends are gone because he has to up the volume when they're there. Just absolutely all in, knowing that everybody else during that window where he is crushing himself, cutting those trees down, is chilling, eating, wearing Normatec boots, doing whatever the fuck is happening. And he's out there doing that. And he knows that's the case. He knows that's what he is up against. And he went out there and had the performance of a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing this for 7 years, and he wants to do it for 8 years. He's told me, he goes, I got 5 more years till masters. Like when someone, sort of insinuated, like, we going to keep going? He's like, yeah, we got last chance. And then I'm a master in 5 years. So you tell me, sort of a thing. So, again, writing, programming, these last few days, doing some stuff for phase 1, never been more motivated to help the Misfits out there because of this thing. And it's because of the exact thing that everybody, whether consciously or subconsciously, is terrified of. And it is the thing that strengthens the relationships, that makes them very real, that makes them, have these moments where you learn, I can't, if I'm competing, I can't go on defense. I have to stay on offense no matter where I am in the rankings or whatever it is. The ability to let go and to be vulnerable and let the people around you know, I'm going for it. This is it. It seems so scary, and yet it is the most powerful, positive thing that you could do. And I just hope that more people can listen to this and watch all of you guys as examples and understand that it is worth it to go there, because if someone's worth a damn, they're going to be in your life right after. They're going to be even more proud of you because you actually went there and did it.
There's a decent amount of trust that I think is a kind of a big overarching theme for a lot of this, buying in and going in. You need to bet on yourself and trust yourself that if you just keep showing up, getting up at 4 a.m., going to the gym, even on the days that you fucking hate it because it's cold, it's dark, no one's around, everybody's doing something else, and you're in the corner doing your math or your lift. Trusting in yourself, trusting the process, and then trusting other people to help you on this journey are all things that feel very scary, but the difference maker for everybody you just described, all 4 of those athletes, was trusting first themselves to say, I'm going to go all in, and then trusting that they can get, the right support around them from friends and family, the right program, and then they can trust that, had they failed their goal, failed in air quotes, because it's not really a failure, that you'd be there, or that the coach would be there right afterwards being like, fucking cares, last chance qualifiers in 2 weeks, or don't worry, there's that, and there's next season, or there's that, and there's next 5 seasons, then seasons after that as well. So I think a big part of this is the scariness to trust, even though that would be the number one factor in your overall success in this sport, or probably literally any endeavor, but we use our sport for a lot of parallels for life.
The 3 of us sitting here know what it feels like to be there on the other side for someone. But Paige, you're the one on this podcast that knows what it feels like to put yourself out there. I guess leaving it fairly open-ended, what does all of this mean to you after listening to that?
Yeah. It definitely is a scary feeling, and just the initial act of saying I'm going all in, that is, again, you're taking a risk into an unknown situation that you don't know what's going to happen. You could fail, you could come out on top, but if your friendships and your relationships are as strong as you think they are, whether you fail or you succeed, you still going home to those same people, and they still know it's the same you. And I actually, I have a couple friends who, I have one friend, Marie, she's funny. She's so funny. She'll fangirl with me. She is just a huge fan of mine, and we're close friends too. We talk weekly, and she's just like, how are you just so normal? And I'm like, well, I am just a normal person, like, yes, I am a CrossFit Games athlete, but I'm also just a regular human being like you guys. And, it's just, you have those relationships and they need to be as normal as they can be for you, whatever normal means. Always have that to fall back on. So again, you're right. You have to have those people that you trust, and knowing that, okay, if I fail or I succeed, I have them to fall back on.
Yeah. And there's something really powerful too about, it's not like you said you were all in, May 1st. All right. This is my year. I'm going for it. You went through a lot with Gabe and Ben and your family and your support system from, July through April. And I think that's where you are able to, maybe the right word is like to bank the trust. They know you're doing the things that it's going to take to get to that point. And that's a really big part of the equation. And the other side is just allowing yourself to let go and really let loose on the competition floor. But you have to bank that trust throughout the entire year. I've worked with a lot of athletes who had the aspirations to get to a certain place and just really struggled with the monotony of the grind, in those real special, November, December months, sort of those middle months where it gets really bad. And I think there's something special about you going in and executing for that long over the course of the entire season. It's almost like you've already been through it together, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's the hardest part is, in summertime can get pretty, I'll say not so fun, because while it's summertime, friends are going out to the lake, they're going out to eat, they're doing all these things. It's like, well, I have my priorities, and sometimes it's not going out to the lake with everyone else, so right. It could get pretty dark and lonely in the summertime as well. So yeah, you are really going through it almost all year round as far as when you're in season, and I trust them to fall back on them, but like, they may not understand why I do what I do or certain decisions. Like they may not relate to it, may not understand it, but they're okay with it. And they're my decisions, and they are my friends and family. And, they're going to allow me to be who I am and do what I need to do, so it's like a judgment free kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Keep going on that a little bit. Like, is it even possible for them to understand how you feel? Is it possible for us to internalize and almost like, I don't know, like in the Terminator, or the guy turns into the other part, you know what I mean? Like, can we really feel your feelings? Like, would it ever be possible to explain how you feel about this stuff?
I don't think so. Like Ben and I will have moments where, I talk to him, he works 6 to 6. So a lot of my days when I'm home, I spend the time alone, and I'll get into a rut every now and then where I'm coaching for a couple hours, and that's kind of my social time, is to be coaching. But at the same time, it's a social time while I'm working. So like, it's not the same, if that makes sense.
These guys understand.
I was just about to say, fully relate.
And it's not that I don't love it. Like, I love getting to enjoy time with other people, but again, you're on the clock and you're trying to give them the best hour, and just, in a good mood and trying to be myself for them. But, you also are putting in so much effort mentally and physically into your training. And that's where, you kind of can suck a lot of life out of you if you don't balance it out. And I'll get into a rut where I'm, just super quiet, kind of down on myself. And it's because I'm looking at it from that angle where it's like, well, I'm by myself all the time and I have no one to talk to. And, I'm just training hard and coaching and this and that. And it's like Groundhog's Day. So like, I do have moments where I need to vent about that. And I don't know I would think it's much harder to relate to than you think. Like, to really feel empathetic towards it unless you kind of put yourself in that situation, which most people can't or won't do because they have a life and they have other priorities.
Yeah, it's really hard to, I think maybe what I was getting at is the narrative could be, I know you're not going to completely understand this where I'm coming from, but you care about me. So like, care about this.
Yeah.
Let me vent. Let me talk about this. It might not make sense. Honestly, It might not make sense to 99.9% of the population, but like, this is the situation I'm currently in.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does it look like when you are in one of those ruts? Like what typically kicks you out of that rut? Is it being open and honest with Ben, or is he just really good at like essentially changing the subject and helping you to ease your mind into thinking about other things, and that just kind of gradually works you kind of out of that funk? Like, because I know, I'm never everywhere competed at the level that you have, but the idea of like caring about something a lot that your partner doesn't do is something I can definitely relate to. Like my wife isn't really into CrossFit at all, so like if for whatever fixated on something that is important to me, but
Maya, I know listening.
She hears about it and she's like, oh cool, you couldn't like whatever deadlift 300 pounds a day. Like, sorry to hear that. Like, who gives a shit? Like, I don't care. So what does that look like from your end, where obviously it's a big part of like, what you're trying to do kind of at this stage in your life?
Can Noel call Ben?
I give a shit that you don't deadlift 300 pounds.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
We'll get there one day.
I mean, with Ben, like he can tell when I'm in a rut. Like we've been around each other long enough now that sometimes I just need space. Other times we need to go out and plan something outside of the gym and just something that's maybe the two of us or with a group of friends. But another, like that's one way for me is to just get outside of the gym and clear my head that way and have a good time with a couple friends. The other way would be, every once in a while I'll jump in class with my friends. So with people that I spend the most time with, I try to find a class or that Ben is in. And that is kind of like, that will help kick me out of it, because then it's like, okay, I suffered through this workout with my people. Like, then you kind of can chit chat a little bit after that. And that's a good way for me to kind of get out of it as well. So I try to limit that throughout like games training. But I do have moments where it's like, okay, I'm going to sub this workout out and I'm going to go jump in class and be around the people I want to be around.
If it allows you to compete at a higher level for a longer time, I think that's perfectly appropriate.
Yeah. I think a less mature athlete, I think like those things are terrific. You almost have to earn the right to do that. I think as somebody who's competed as long as you have, at the level that you have, you've kind of earned and it's not even the right to like, cause I don't even think about jumping into class as like, oh, I'm taking time off, or this is I'm moving one of the beads in the wrong direction on the slider here. I think it's like, no, this mental reset is necessary. This is part of my training. It's not a detour. It's part of the training. But for a younger athlete, there's almost like kind of an earning of the stripes. It's like, you don't rate the right to complain about that until you've, kind of experienced a certain level of the competition, or maybe it's unfairness or something like that. It's just like, if you're a younger athlete, it's like, and you're taking that, it's just like, I'm in the gym, I'm out of the gym. It's like, well, maybe you're not totally committed, but for somebody who's like kind of has the, the resume that says like, no, this is me taking time off, or me saying like, hey, I'm going to go to the beach with Ben or whatever, this is like viewing it almost as part of training, I think makes that a little bit more digestible for somebody who, might feel almost like guilty about missing out on something like that, especially if you have people around you who don't fully understand. People might not understand what it takes to compete at a high level at the CrossFit Games, but most people do understand and see and recognize what hard work looks like and what commitment to something, bigger than themselves or a long-term goal, committing to that. People know what that kind of work looks like.
All right. So 2023 campaigning for an athlete going all in. Each person gets to give their speech.
Kelly Clark.
That's your whole speech?
Yep.
Good job. Period.
Intriguing. Paige gets to go last. She's the guest.
Okay.
I'm going to make one of you go first, and then the other person can decide whether they want me to go second or not. And it's just the idea of you could be talking to anyone about anything, but convincing them that starting phase 1, that it is worth it to let go and put it out there and do everything that you can to get that thing done.
That's that cliche of like the best time to do something was 5 years ago and the next best time is like tomorrow. To me, that is the impetus for this kind of this whole picture, whether that you're talking about competing in the sport of CrossFit or doing any physical or mental endeavor in your life, is if you actually care about this thing, you've taken the time, you've sat in front of the mirror, stared yourself in the mirror and gone, you know what, this is something that's really important to me. And I know that I will be more proud of myself had I committed all into something. But that's where it has to start. So you have to figure out what that thing is for you. And now our space is typically getting someone a little bit fitter at the sport of fitness here. But, you know, taking the time to have that honest conversation with yourself, whether that's literally talking in your own mind, talking to yourself in the mirror, or writing or journaling things down, is a really good first step towards making strides towards a goal. Now, once you've had that conversation, you need to ask yourself, what are the non-negotiables for you to reach your goal? Is it making sure you hit the amount of training days you need to hit a day per day? Is it, if you're trying to get better at writing, are you writing every single morning when you get up? If it's reading, are you reading every night before bed kind of thing? These like non-negotiable habits that you have to do to help you get to your goal need to be very, very apparent and obvious to you. And then once those things are kind of checked off, find someone to confide in. Find someone who's willing to ask you every once in a while, hey, how's that thing going? Or how's this going? Or are you working on your thing? Are you meditating on Monday afternoon? Whatever the object or the idea is that you're trying to accomplish, it's making sure that you have that honest assessment with yourself. You figure out what the things are that are going to actually help you move in the positive direction, and then making sure that you have the support staff around you. Because like we've talked about the entire podcast here, is it's not an only man or only woman endeavor. It takes a village to make these things happen, but it does start with you. So my campaign would be figure out what that is, make sure you know kind of the ins and outs of what the task is. And if you don't have every bit of detail, maybe you find someone to help you, and then make sure that you have a support staff around you so that you're better set up for success when it comes time to go ahead and do this thing.
I'm confused. Are we campaigning for a person or
an elephant?
Did Sherb just do final thoughts?
This is final thoughts and campaigning, one and the same. You are trying to convince anyone. Would you like me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Probably Paige, these two, and most of the people listening know that what I'm about to say won't land on the elemental chart. We're headed up to the...
I'm actually very interested, because when you asked this, I was like...
We're heading to the stratosphere beyond a galaxy unknown.
Okay.
I believe much of this for a lot of our listeners is actually, whether they know it or not, tied to self-worth. I think a lot of people before the social media age struggled with self-worth, the idea of knowing that they were worthy of working on themselves. And this could be in a number of different ways. And then as we've ushered ourselves into this time where we spend hours a day watching other people campaign for you, essentially thinking that their life is fantastic. This isn't a barb against a specific person or anything like that, but I think people get stuck in a place where it feels easier in the moment to be self-deprecating, feels easier in the moment to lean into the weaknesses that they've created and maybe make a joke out of it. We do it all the time here on the podcast. We're talking about, Sherb's ankles or my cupcake lungs or whatever it is. And these things are the epitome of hard choices, easy life, easy choices, hard life. Not understanding the ramifications of the choices we make sort of on a short-term basis. But the reality of the situation is just about everybody listening to this podcast, I would assume 100% of the people actually do mean a whole hell of a lot to a lot of people out there. And the idea that you're not worth the time and effort that you would put in to go into something is a crock of shit. People are worthy of giving themselves the attention that they deserve, cutting themselves some slack, that sort of thing. So I want people to go through the process, what I alluded to as the, July through April versus, the final outcome. I want people to go through that because they deserve to know what it feels like to work on themselves to that extent, to put themselves out there, because the lessons that I have learned within the gym as a coach, as an athlete, as an affiliate member, translate out to life in a way that I'll never be able to pay it forward and back in the way that this has changed me physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that. So, it is worth it for you to go in and go all in on yourself because you are worth that. And it's an experience that you come out the other side of feeling like a completely different human being. So really it's just me convincing people that they are worth the time and effort that it takes to go all in on something and come out the other side knowing, oh my God, that was worth it. And it was fucking gnarly, most of the steps in the entire journey. And I'm so glad that I ended up on this other side because it's so hard when you're in the thick of it and you're in the shit to see that when I come out the other side, it's, it's fucking rainbows everywhere and, all the good stuff that seemed like it was never going to show up.
Yeah, I think my answer is kind of similar, but I think it's almost reversed. So if you're somebody who's contemplating, whether or not to make that dive, sometimes it's easier to kind of ask the reverse question. And the question is what happens if I don't do this? Whether that's the fear of, if you're worried about not achieving the goal that you hypothetically have in your, in your brain, well, not going after that is certainly not going to let you achieve the goal. So the question then becomes exactly how far are you willing to go to achieve that goal? And for people who are listening who might have maybe, either the work ethic, the skill, the God-given talent, whatever it is, I personally believe that people who have the ability to work very hard at something also have the obligation to do it. And if you, regardless of what that is, so if it is going to the CrossFit Games and you have the ability to, and obviously you want, that's something that you want to do, you almost have an obligation to yourself, if no one else, to, work as hard as you possibly can at that one thing and see what happens. And not even necessarily with the fail succeed metric in mind. How many CrossFit Games, maybe you can answer this too, Paige, how many, after you go all in on something, what are the lessons, what are the kind of externalities that you learn from having gone through that extremely difficult, extremely demanding, mentally exhausting process, and obviously physically when we're talking about CrossFit as well. But it's what if you don't do it? How many people kind of float through life just I'm pretty good at this and I'll just kind of get by at it. How many people really dig your heels into the ground and try to do something as well as you possibly can and see what happens? And whether or not you fully succeed, the odds that some other opportunity or door opens in the process are extremely high. They're certainly zero if you don't do it. So I think for me, the campaigning as far as going all in, this might work for some people, it might not for others, but what's going to happen if you don't do it? And not much. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. These are hard to kind of be last with because you guys
I figured out.
Sure, you get to make a witch's brew of all three, Paige.
Right. Exactly.
You get to summarize.
You take the things from SugarWOD, you take those most important things, those most valuable things that will help you get to that goal, and you have to work backwards from those, and you need to prioritize them and make them the most important thing. And you need to know that you are worthy of it. Like, you deserve good things to happen to you. And a lot of good things just take really, really hard work. So you have to know that your self-worth, like, it needs to be up there. It needs to be at a super high level. And the people behind you, the people that are your friends and family, like, they find you worthy of it. So you need to really dig into yourself and know that you are. And, you know, it's hard to take this one, because it's like,
I mean, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is you really need, like, if you really want to commit to something, just fucking commit to it and tell yourself that this is what I want to do. Okay, now let's get all of those things that would help me get to this goal, and let's just start ticking them off. And, you know, maybe your biggest goal is, I want to commit to losing weight. And you're like, okay, well, there's 5 million different things that you could try to do to start losing weight, but you need to just start with one, and you need to take that one small step, right? I can't just stop drinking soda, going out to eat. Like, doing a lot at once is really hard, and it's overwhelming, and that's why people quit. So starting with one small daily task that you can either add in or remove out of your life, that's how you get the ball rolling. That's where the snowball comes in.
You couldn't clean and jerk 225 in your beginner's class?
Is that a question or a statement? Are you talking about yourself?
No, I'm just insinuating that Paige has had quite a journey, and sometimes it just looks like, watch her out there lifting on the platform, and you're like, what the hell? What? How much weight is that? Like,
right.
Like, you took single steps and you followed programming that had, you know, a lift a day or a Metcon a day, and then it's a little bit more here and a little bit more there. And, you know, we get to see the end result, but not only have you been dedicated, it's also been an iterative process. You figured out what works for you and what doesn't, and you continue to take those steps. Not only did you take that first step, but you took your second and your third, and you just kept going.
Yeah, you're forever evolving as a human, as an athlete, as a friend, as a daughter. Like, it's just part of the journey, and you have to find out which journeys are the most important to you. And those are the ones that you really commit to.
Did we do it?
Did it?
We did it.
All right, Paige, thank you again for joining us, and congratulations on your season thus far. We'll see you here at Misfit HQ in a couple weeks, and we can't wait to see you burn it down at the CrossFit Games this year.
Yeah.
Me too. Thanks guys.
Thanks, Paige.
See you, Paige.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, Ted, am I doing the outro? Yeah, why not? All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast, and thank you to our show sponsors. You can head to properfuel.co for the best pre and post workout nutrition in the game. Use the code word Misfit to save. We're also brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com. Use the code word Paige, Paige. You save some money. She gets a little bit more money.
I didn't know you were still here.
She gets a little bit more money into her games fund, and Comp Block 3 is underway right now. MisfitAthletics.com or the SugarWOD Marketplace. If you're a goon like us three, make sure you head to TeamMisfit.com or the SugarWOD Marketplace for your affiliate programming needs, and we will see you next week.